Hello friends! Before we get started, I want to give a warning that the stories on today's episode contain unsettling events that may not be suitable for all viewers. Please use the timestamps below to skip any stories, and let's get started. A few years ago, I was renting a house in Northern California. The neighborhood was just outside the suburbs. It seemed like the perfect balance of having space and having nice neighbors close enough not to feel isolated. The area had no streetlights, so it was very dark at night, especially when there were clouds blocking the moonlight. It didn't bother me though. It made my little house feel even more quaint on dark nights. I got home from work one day in midwinter. It was a cloudy night, so pulling up to my house, I saw only what my headlights and front porch light illuminated. When I got out of my car, I caught a whiff of cigarette smoke. That was odd, as I had never smelled that before around the house. I didn't see anyone nearby, so I ignored it and went inside. I had just got off a shift with a few hours of overtime, so I felt pretty tired. Even though it wasn't 7 yet, I decided to take a shower and call it a night. I woke up sometime later, sure that I had heard a noise inside my house. I wasn't worried right away because my friend would sometimes stop by to use my shower on his way to his night classes. I gave him a spare key so he could stop by when I wasn't home. He would always text me to let me know beforehand, and I hadn't heard my phone go off. I reached over to my bedside table and picked up my cell phone to see if my friend had sent me a text. The bright light from my phone blinded me and was so bright I could use it as a flashlight. Through squinted eyes, I could make out that it was 9-something, but I couldn't tell if I had an unread text or not. I set my phone aside and called out my friend's name. There were a couple of seconds of silence before I heard loud footsteps as someone started running through the main floor of my house. I leapt out of bed and ran to the closet. He was already up the stairs by the time I had opened the door and stepped inside. The house has 3 rooms upstairs, 2 bedrooms on either side of the hallway, and a bathroom at the end. The bedroom doors were both closed, but the bathroom door was cracked open. I heard the intruder thunder down the hallway, past my door, and into the bathroom, which gave me enough time to open the attic access in my ceiling of my closet and hoist myself up. I had just started to lift myself up when the intruder ran back out of the bathroom. My feet were barely inside of the attic when my bedroom door burst open. I heard footsteps running into my room and stop. When he didn't see me in that room, he ran back to the hallway and into the other room, which had just boxes stacked in a corner, some weights, and a table where I paint my miniature models. I guess he decided that if someone were hiding, it would be in the bedroom because he charged back into my room and turned on the light. A moment later, the closet door was ripped open. I was crouched in my attic just a foot or so away from the access, so I could try to stop him if he started to climb up. From my vantage point, all I could see was from about his knees down. He was wearing dirty blue jeans with frayed cuffs and worn work boots. After a few seconds of looking in the closet, he stepped away and I heard a loud crash coming from my room, followed by a scream of frustration and anger. That scream was the most unnerving part of the incident for me. The man in my house ran back down the stairs. I heard crashes and clatters as things were thrown around and furniture was knocked over. I stayed crouched in the attic. I had left my cell phone when I ran for the closet, and I wasn't sure I could climb down without him hearing. After some time, the noises stopped. I started counting slowly. When I reached 1,000, I decided it was safe enough to climb down and call the police. The first thing I noticed when I exited the closet was the intruder had flipped my bed over. I assume in an attempt to find me. That was the loud noise I heard after he stepped away from the closet. I couldn't find my cell phone, so I went to the landline by the bed and called the police. I waited in my room until I heard them call out from downstairs. The first floor was a mess, but I had expected that. Chairs had been knocked over, the sofa had been flipped. All the books, pictures, and knickknacks I had on my shelves was strewn across the floor. The cupboards in the kitchen had been opened and all the boxed and canned foods had been thrown to the ground. As far as I could tell, though, the only thing missing was a single knife out of the wooden block in my kitchen. The police checked the house from top to bottom. They found that the side door had been forced open by something like a crowbar. They also found a few cigarette butts along my fence line, along with some foil and an empty pen tube. So they think they had been watching my house for a while. I realized that he must have been out there smoking a cigarette when I got home. They collected up the evidence and told me I should stay with family or friends that night and get the door fixed as soon as possible. I opted to just not sleep. I moved a shelf over to block the broken door and spent the next couple of hours cleaning things up. I would often go to the window with a flashlight to shine along the fence line where the police found the cigarette butts and foil, but I didn't see anything. The next day, I called to have the door fixed and motion lights installed at the back and sides of my house. I ran a phone cable up into the attic and added a landline. I never wanted to be stuck up there without a phone again. Nothing else happened at that house. I lived there another 3 years without incident. One more precaution I took was practicing getting out of my bed, going to my closet, and climbing into the attic as quickly and quietly as possible. I even kept it up when I moved, except now I go to a crawl space at the back of the closet instead of the attic. I try not to think about what would have happened if I had been a bit slower getting to the attic, or if he hadn't gone into the bathroom at the end of the hall first. While growing up, I often had opportunities to stay home alone when I was younger, since my mother and father traveled overseas to visit their ill parents, and my much older siblings wouldn't get off work until at least an hour or two after I finished school. I was used to being home alone and actually enjoyed it. One Saturday, when I was 12, my parents had to go to a funeral for an old friend in a nearby city. My brother had already moved out by then, and my sister was nowhere to be found, so my parents decided to leave me home alone for the entire day. I was so excited. Being home alone for a whole day meant I could blast my music and spend as much time as I wanted on the computer. When my brother moved out, we converted his bedroom into an office where my computer was. We still had dial-up internet at the time, so my parents added an extra phone line in the house for it. I ran into the office to use what I called my personal phone line to call my friend who lived a few streets over to see if she wanted to come hang out. She was really upset. She told me she was having boyfriend problems and needed someone to talk to, so she would be right over. I thought to myself, girl talk means we need a good treat, and ran out of the office so I could go check out what was in the kitchen. That's when I saw her, a pale woman dressed in all black with her black hair in a bun. Her head tilted as I ran by the corner. I couldn't really see her eyes, but for some reason I remember thinking that she was smiling. I got some serious chills and felt instantly frozen, but I ignored it, thinking I was paranoid from being alone all day, and ran down the stairs. I couldn't believe my imagination was playing tricks on itself like that. I called my friend to see if she had left yet, and since no one answered the phone at her house, I figured she had. Something still didn't feel right, so I put on my jacket and headed out to the driveway to wait for her. When she arrived, she asked me what I was doing outside. I said, "Something weird just happened, but I'll tell you over hot white chocolate." And we went inside, took off our coats, and drank our hot chocolate in the kitchen while she told me about the problems she was having with her boyfriend. Since both her boyfriend and I had webcams and we knew he had friends over, we went into my computer room upstairs to call him and see if he and his friends wanted to web chat with us. While she was on the phone with him, I was talking to his friend on the computer and setting up my webcam. While my friend was on the phone, she turned around and looked out the door into the hallway. She told her boyfriend that she'd have to call him back. She looked at me, wide-eyed and white-faced, and said, "There's a woman in your hallway wearing a black dress." I got up from my computer chair and closed the door without looking into the hallway. I frantically tried to remember if I had told her why I was outside when she got there. I then asked her, "Didn't I mention that to you when you got here?" And she said, "No." And I asked, "How was her hair?" And my friend said, "In a bun." We both freaked out, opened the door, made sure the coast was clear, and bolted down the stairs. I called my parents and told them I was going to my friend's house, but they told me they were a few minutes away and insisted that I wasn't leaving the house. When they got home, I told them what happened, but they didn't believe me. For the next few days, I kept thinking I was seeing her, but I wasn't sure if it was my imagination because I was so scared or because she was really there. Weird things happened too, like the calendar in my bedroom would be upside down when I got home from school, or things would go missing from my room. Eventually, these weird occurrences stopped. However, a couple of months later, we adopted a 2-year-old cat, and eventually, the weird occurrences stopped for me. However, from the moment we brought our cat home all the way up to today, she has 3 or 4 random corners of the house that she meows at constantly. Every once in a while, after meowing at a particular spot, she shrieks and runs away as fast as she can. One of these spots is in my bedroom, and lately, she's been meowing at it every night. This next story has a trigger warning for firearm violence and death. Please use the timestamps below to skip this story if necessary. A friend of the family was enjoying coffee on his back porch in the morning when a large unkempt male emerged from the tree line. The guy proceeded to bolt towards the house in a menacing way. My friend lives alone and often uses his backyard as a gun range. As the man from the trees is charging towards the house, my friend bolts all the doors and calls the police. Unbeknownst to my friend, the guy had actually broken in the day before from the basement window and squatted there for the night. The guy had left the basement door unlocked and at this point was making his way up the stairs towards my friend. My friend has his house security gun aimed at the guy who is now coming down the hallway. He fires the first round, which is rock salt, and the guy isn't fazed. Next was a rubber bullet to the chest, yet the guy was clearly out of his mind, still coming down the hallway. The third shot was from an actual gun with a live round and left a hole in his heart. The intruder was still coming at him since he was a pretty massive guy. He wrestled my friend to the ground, but the injury caught up to him, and he died on top of my friend. Meanwhile, the operator had heard the entire exchange between the two, which amounted to, "Stop or I'll shoot," and "Shoot me." Cops were there soon and it made local papers. There was some sort of criminal investigation, but my friend was eventually cleared. Turns out the intruder had escaped from a mental hospital a few days before from Baltimore and made his way 50-odd miles up the road into some rural country. I haven't talked to my friend, only his parents since the ordeal, but I imagine that messed him up a bit, considering the guy had obviously slept for at least one night in his basement. I was living in a split-level duplex with my boyfriend, 4 cats, and a foster black lab mix. The cats never went in the lower level, and the dog hated being down there. I always had a feeling of being watched, but I chalked it up to there being windows at street level since it was a daylight basement. I had 2 weird experiences, but only the second one qualifies for Home Alone. I'll include the first for context. The first one, I figured it was just my imagination getting the best of me since I didn't like being downstairs. I was doing laundry and my headphones were in and my boyfriend was upstairs gaming, completely oblivious to anything going on around him. As I was putting my clothes into the wash, I heard someone snap their fingers in my ear, like they were next to me and trying to get my attention, but no one was there. For my second experience, my boyfriend and half our animals were out of the house for the day, visiting his family in a nearby city. I was downstairs printing off some coupons when I heard the front door unlock, open, close, and heard feet on the landing. I called out, "Hey, you're back early," since who else could it be? I walked at the bottom of the stairs, expecting to see my boyfriend on the landing with a very excited dog and 2 very annoyed cats. But no one was there. No one parked in the driveway. No one parked on the road. No one was home at the neighbors. The cats were upstairs and perfectly uninterested. I called my boyfriend, and he was still with his family and slightly freaked out when I told him what I heard. He raced back, and we decided that if he left again, he should leave the dog since he seems to be sensitive and it would make me feel safer. I never had auditory hallucinations before or since. I lived in a heavily haunted house. It was a large house and I had 9 roommates, so there were always the sound of people walking around on different levels, opening and closing doors and talking. It wasn't until I was alone in the house for the first time that I noticed you could hear walking around, opening and closing doors, and talking even when there was no one there. Around 2 or 3 a.m., I went down to the basement to play the piano, and I had a very strong feeling of someone telling me to leave. For someone who has never experienced this, just imagine you're in a room with someone who is irate and is screaming and throwing things at the walls. Then just subtract the sound and images. The feeling is the same. I thought I should say something out loud, so I said, "I'm sorry to bother you. I'll leave now because I respect you as a roommate." It was when I said the word roommate that the feeling stopped and things got very calm. I went back upstairs to my room, feeling very shaky. I was sitting in my bed for 20 minutes when I saw something on my wall, a 3-foot-long see-through salamander. It crawled down my wall and up into my bed and then disappeared. Many of my roommates would have weird feelings, hear footsteps when they were alone in the house, or hear voices from the other room and similar occurrences. One time, a friend came to the house, and after she went upstairs to use the bathroom, she literally ran out of the house screaming. She ran across the street and would not cross back over to our side of the street. She had never had a supernatural experience before, and even said she didn't believe in ghosts, but something had come up behind her in the bathroom and put a bunch of images in her head. She said whatever this entity was, it was trying to tell her a bunch of abuse and violence that happened in that bathroom. It shook her to her core. We also had 2 experiences 2 years in a row where one of our roommates suffered a complete paranoid schizophrenic breakdown. I moved into the house right after the first guy had his breakdown, so I only saw a little bit of that one. But the second one, I saw the whole thing, and a lot of his paranoia was centered around the ghost, and how whenever he heard voices in the house that seemed to be talking to him, no one was around, which made him think we were sneaking around talking about him behind his back. Hello and welcome to the neighborhood. This is a very peaceful place to live, except when there is a blackout. They don't happen very often, but when they do, it can be catastrophic. This list will not only help you prepare for the blackout, but it will help you while you wait for the power to come back on. Print this list out and keep it with you because you won't be able to access it when the power fails. 1. The power will only ever go out at night. Keep matches and candles handy at all times. When the power goes out here, all electronics are disabled. Even home alarm systems you have installed will fail. 2. Even though it is dark, carry on with your routine like usual. Clean the house, make meals the best you can, and take a shower. Normal activities will keep you grounded for what will happen the rest of the night. 3. The city shuts down during a blackout. No one will ever come and visit you. Never answer the door, no matter how familiar or helpful the voice may seem. 4. Once you are done with your nightly routine, I suggest that you pick one room and stay there until bedtime. Items around the rest of your house will be rearranged and the room will be dangerous to enter. 5. I'm sure you've been told not to worry as much if you hear an intruder in your home at night because you know the layout of your home, so you have the advantage. A blackout is much different. In this case, they have the advantage. Your first instinct will be to run to your room, but they'll be waiting for you there. Go anywhere else in your house. 6. Keep your blinds open throughout the night. Give the illusion that you see them. No matter how unsettling it is watching them gather in your yard, don't shut the blinds. 7. Check and make sure your doors and windows are locked every 6 minutes, no matter what you are doing. Even if you are eating or working on something, nothing is more important than making sure everything is still shut. 8. Announce your presence before entering each room. If you hear a woman's voice, shut the door and never return to that room. Cement the entrance once the power comes on. If you hear a man's voice, you are free to enter. Pray you never hear any type of voice behind you. 9. If you're walking through your house and you hear footsteps, don't worry. If you hear them running, hide in the nearest room and shut the door immediately. You won't have time to announce your presence and listen for the answer, but what lays in wait in the room is far less dangerous than what was chasing you. 10. Whenever the lights go out, a figure will always appear in your house. This figure will either appear as an old woman or a child. The woman will inch closer to you with every hour. You won't be able to see her until she is a few feet away, but you'll be able to hear her bones cracking and limbs dragging across the floor. You'll notice the child right away. Though it has no eyes, it will always be where it can see you. If the child gets scared and runs, I suggest you follow. 11. Don't trust the shadows, not even your own. When you see a shadow of any kind, wait before going to the part of your house. First, see if the shadow contorts in any way that seems unnatural. It's good at waiting too, so you must be patient. 12. During a blackout, there is no such thing as normal. There are no innocent sounds or shapes. Everything around you is a threat. If something sounds like it fell over in another room, it was probably pushed. If that pile of clothes looks like a person, it probably is. 13. When you go to sleep, make sure you lock your door behind you. Lay face down and don't look around your room. She hates to be seen. She will ignore you if you ignore her. If you do look at her, simply look away as quickly as possible. She can only move if you're looking at her, so she'll do whatever she can to get you to look. Keep looking away, even if her voice alters to that of a loved one. 14. Cover all the mirrors in your home with a sheet. You'll still hear their taunting and laughter, but at least you won't have to see what they're wanting to do to you. Don't break the glass either. That will just create more of them. 15. As soon as you notice the power has gone off, take down all pictures in your house that have people in them. A few will get out, but at least you can stop most of them. What escape from the picture frames will resemble who they are in reality. They only rely on hearing, so don't worry if they see you. 16. Pounding on doors and walls is normal, unfortunately. If the pounding comes from the floor, exit the house right away. If this happens, I'm afraid there are no more steps to take for your safety. Thank you, friends, for joining me today. If you enjoyed the stories on this episode, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be alerted to all future content. If you have a story you would like me to read, feel free to email me your submission for a chance to hear your story on a future episode. If you would like to support this channel, please join for bonus and members-only content. Thank you again, friends, for your love and support. I'm Avaria, and until next time, take care.